Here we go.
Hello and welcome to Bounty and Comics. My name is John Trent. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief at Bounty and Comics. Today we're going to talk about a story about the Lord of the Rings of Power, and actor Lenny Henry virtue signaling about the show, basically pulling out the Disney Playbook, noting that the show will finally center people of color in a fantasy TV show, fantasy story. So let's get to this right here. I wrote this article earlier today. As you can see, the headline reads, Lenny Henry says Amazon's The Lord of the Rings of Power sees, quote, people of color taking up space in the center of a fantasy series. But before we get to that, we're going to go over some of the other comments that Lenny Henry says about the upcoming Lord of the Rings of Power series, because he did talk to Empire Magazine about kind of a little bit more of his character and what we can expect from his character and the group of hobbits that he is a part of. We did get a reveal that his character is called Sadoc Burrows, and he is a Harfoot, which is a type of hobbit. But so let's kind of get into this here. He says he detailed the tribe that he's a part of. He says we're a nomadic tribe, moving with the weather and the fertility of the crops. We have big caravans on wooden wheels, and we're very good at hiding things because humans are much bigger than us and bring trouble. We're going to get into this a little bit more later, but I do have a little bit of a nitpick here. Usually you have to stay in one location in order to grow crops. It's usually just how it works. It takes a long time to grow crops throughout the year. They don't just like instantly grow up and then you follow them, or that you like, I don't know, you're going to find like the berry bushes you planted years ago. You're not like a hummingbird or a migrating bird where you're going to different locations where there's already stuff there. For like humanoid type people like the hobbits, usually you would be growing like corn or something like that, or some kind of root vegetable, and those take time to grow, so you have to stay in one location, whereas like a nomadic tribe usually follows migrating animals. Thinking about a lot of the Native American tribes that were on the Great Plains, where they were following the buffalo up and down the plains. So that's kind of just a weird thing there. It's red flag for me. That's a small little thing, but it does stick out. The authenticity there doesn't really hit home that they would be migrating to follow the fertility of the crops. Just a very odd thing to say. But he went on to describe the types of people that they are. He says, we're the traditional Tolkien little guy. Traditionally, the little people in this world provide comedy, but also get to be incredibly brave. You're going to see us run the full gamut of emotions and actions in this adventure. That's not out of the ordinary. Nothing really. There's no real substance there. It's nothing there. Typical kind of like promo stuff. I don't really see anything good or bad coming from that. But then we get into this kind of standard marketing plug that has been kind of a tradition now, I guess, for Disney, especially when it comes to Marvel and Star Wars. If you remember, just recently we had Obi-Wan Kenobi actress Moses Ingram promoting the Obi-Wan Kenobi show to The Independent, saying Obi-Wan is going to bring the most diversity I think we've ever seen in the galaxy before. To me, it's long overdue. If you've got talking droids and aliens, but no people of color, it doesn't make any sense. It's 2022, you know? So we're just at the beginning of that change, but I think to start that change is better than never having started it. And Henry kind of says something similar. Before we get to what he says, I do want to just point out how absolutely absurd the statement is from Ingram. You can easily debunk it just from the very beginning of Star Wars. James Earl Jones is the iconic voice of Darth Vader. Billy D. Williams plays the smooth-talking businessman Lando Calrissian. Samuel Jackson plays the righteous leader of the Jedi Order, Mace Windu. And the list goes on and on when it comes to Star Wars. So Ingram's comments are just a load of crap, and honestly, it's just a marketing PR stunt, and it's Disney just trying to hide behind their actors, and so they can accuse people of racism, which I think is what exactly the Rings of Power are doing. I think Lenny Henry, is doing something here. So this is what he said, speaking to Empire. He says, finally, in this show, kids are going to see people of color taking up space in the center of a fantasy series. I mean, sounds very familiar to what Moses Ingram had to say. And then he says, "We're very visible in this world, and that's very exciting." He previously indicated to Empire, saying, if you can't see it, you can't be it." Utterly ridiculous notion there. Lots of people want to be like Spider-Man. Maybe you can't be Spider-Man, but you want to maybe aspire to be that. So I guess there's some truth to what he's saying, but it's also the context does matter here. And I think you can still aspire to be a character that doesn't look like you. Like I can aspire to be like Luke Cage, even though I can't be Luke Cage. Right? There's nothing wrong. I can't be Luke Cage because I'm not black. So correct. There's right there, but I can still aspire to be like Luke Cage and the actions and the things that he does. I can aspire to kind of like emulate myself about like that. But again, like Star Wars and like most Ingram's comments, I think Henry's comments are just utterly ridiculous as well. You can just point to Star Wars, probably the most popular fantasy film series of all time. There's lots of black actors and people of color. You can look at Stranger Things, probably one of the most popular science fiction and fantasy shows in recent years. One of the main characters is Lucas Sinclair, played by Caleb Reginald McLaughlin, and then you have his sister Erica Sinclair, played by Priya Ferguson. And then Game of Thrones, also probably one of the hugest fantasy television shows of all time. Jason Momoa is Khal Drogo, one of the leaders of the many tribes of the Dothraki. Natalie Emmanuel plays Missandei, one of Daenerys' top advisors after she's freed from slavery. Pedro Pascal plays Prince Oberyn of Dorne, and then you have Indira Varma playing his paramour Alaria Sam. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, you can just keep naming them off. So his idea that they're finally being centered is just utterly absurd and ridiculous because there's so much evidence kind of disproving that. But aside from that, like that laundry list that we have, him playing a hobbit is actually a contradiction to Tolkien's description of the characters. There are no actual black hobbits or black Harfoots in Tolkien's Middle Earth. Tolkien does note in the prologue of the Fellowship of the Ring that Harfoots have browner skin, but it's in comparison to the other two types of hobbits, the Stores and the Fallowhides. The Fallowhides specifically are described as fair of skin, so let's just kind of read what Tolkien wrote here. He says, "The Harfoots were browner of skin, smaller and shorter, and they were beardless and bootless. Their hands and feet were neat and nimble, and they preferred highlands and hillsides. The Stores were broader, heavier in build. Their feet and hands were larger, and they preferred flatlands and riversides. The Fallowhides were fairer of skin and also of hair, and they were taller and slimmer than the others. They were lovers of trees and of woodlands." So a lot of people take that browner of skin to mean that they could be black. If you actually go back and look at some of the historical descriptions of what people with browner skin were, it's mainly people from like the Mediterranean, like like Greek, Spanish, Italians, like that. They have darker skin. They're not they're not like what would you consider Lenny Henry as a black person. But we also got this description here where Tolkien wrote that the Harfoots are actually what the majority of the majority of hobbits. He says the Harfoots had much to do with dwarfs in ancient times and long lived in the foothills of the mountains. They moved westward early and roamed over Eriador as far as Weathertop, while the others were still in Wilderland. They were the most normal and representative variety of hobbit and far the most numerous. They were the most inclined to settle in one place and longest preserved their ancestral habit of living in tunnels and holes. So he clearly says far the most numerous, and then clearly we have official depiction of what hobbits look like. This is from The Hobbit. Clearly they're all white characters. I don't see any black hobbits. But I do want to also point out here that it's interesting that the Harfoots are the ones most inclined to settle in one place, yet we have Lenny Henry here describing them as a nomadic tribe, which again contradicts Tolkien's work, which the showrunners said they wouldn't be doing if it contradicted the work. They clearly, seemingly a lie, given the fact that he's describing them as nomads, when indeed the Harfoots are most inclined to settle in one place, and longest preserve their ancestral habit of living in tunnels and holes. So I definitely think this is the playbook that Amazon is running with. They're using Lenny Henry to to run that play, just as Star Wars and Lucasfilm are still doing and did recently with Moses Ingram in Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I don't expect that they're telling you what the playbook is here. I don't expect them to change that play. I think that they are going to continue double downing on it. We've seen them kind of do it from the very beginning, where it's all about identity politics from them. That was in their first kind of big write-up with Vanity Fair, where you had one of the show's big producers basically saying that they wanted to diversify Tolkien, and they've made it. I think the showrunners actually said that was their one of the biggest things with Tolkien too, is that the diversity of the characters, and we all know that is skin tone in today's modern context, modern language, and we all kind of know what's happening here. That they don't really care about Tolkien's work, and they're going to do everything they can to put a modern spin on it and ignore what Tolkien actually wrote and ignore the actual canon of the books that they say that they have to follow. But it's seemingly everything we keep finding out, they are not following it. But let me know what you think about Lenny Henry's comments here. Do you think this is just another Moses Ingram, Lucasfilm, Disney style PR stunt, marketing stunt? Or do you think it's something else? Let me know. My name is John Trent, and you've been watching Bounding into Comics.